High school teacher, English teacher, AVID teacher. How do these roles differ? Dramatically. As an AVID teacher, I find myself, by necessity, building deeper relationships with my AVID students than possible or necessary with my English students. In AVID, I am teacher, counselor, mom, friend, and also, sometimes, according to the students, bully. I need to know my students well enough that when I demand more of them, I have established a relationship with the students that makes them willing to give me the rigor AVID requires. I listen to all the excuses and sob stories regarding binder checks. I am required to hold a strong line when the students complain all the time that a certain tutor is too mean or just doesn't like them and therefore gives them low points on tutorials. I have to lend a sympathetic ear and hear how all the other teachers never do anything, say anything, or teach anything. Of course, that's why they don't have enough Cornell notes every Friday. And I have to commiserate while supporting my peers. I know more about my students' personal lives as I hear the reasons for missing binder checks or absences on tutorial days. Sorry, Mrs. Curran, but I don't have my binder today because I left it in the hospital where my father is dying of pancreatic cancer. Or, please don't make me get a parent's signature this week. My mom will seriously make things difficult for me at home. There are the times I get no excuse or explanation from the student at all. Sometimes other students take it upon themselves to let me know that Nancy may be having a hard time, as the student who is in ICU recovering from being stabbed 38 times by her father, who turned on her after he killed her mother, is Nancy's best friend. I know my AVID students well enough. Some of them I've had for 2 years in a row now. I know Adam's agitated because his parents are expecting a new baby and he is having a difficult time coping with this. I notice Clarissa's grades dropping and find out she has an extremely difficult schedule at school, combined with tumbling 3 days a week and cheerleading. When I ask her about it, she barely holds back the tears and tells me she can't quit tumbling yet as it's paid for through March. Being an AVID teacher has definitely changed the way I view my role as a teacher. I started out in the profession, as I believe we all do, thinking I could make a difference through teaching students. This naive enthusiasm was rather quickly squelched when I found myself overwhelmed by the requirements of standards, testing, and all the other hoops we're required to jump through in education. Racing through the curriculum, trying to keep up, I found myself losing the positive outlook I came into this profession with. How could I make a difference when I could barely keep up? Teaching AVID has given me back my faith in the ability of us, as teachers, to actually make a positive change. It's the things the students most hate me for that will make the biggest difference in their lives as they go on to college. That dreaded binder check will help them keep organized and contribute to their success in their classes. Those horrible Cornell notes will prove invaluable as they cram for that all-important exam. With my AVID students, I am able to be that strict disciplinarian when needed and that soft mommy when necessary. AVID has renewed my belief that we, as teachers, really do impact the world. By sending out whole, well-rounded young people who have been introduced to discussion through Socratic seminar, collaboration through tutorials, and organization through binder checks, I am making the world a better place. I know that we, as educators, often hear how we're making the world a better place. But do we ever fully realize it? Get to see it proven true? I had that opportunity during the last month of this past school year. I got to see exactly how my students could step up when needed, how they are becoming well-rounded, contributing citizens. I got to see my students in action. On May 13th, as I pulled into the school parking lot at 7 in the morning, I received a phone call. My 25-year-old son had died, completely unexpectedly. As I drove to Oregon to make final arrangements, I received desperate text messages from my students. Where are you? What happened? Why aren't you here? Save us from the mean sub. As my students found out what had happened, from other AVID team members at my school who so graciously took over my classes, grading, planning, doing everything to keep things running smoothly, the message has changed to, "We are so sorry. What can we do?" My students made me cards, bought me flowers, and the day I returned to school, many of them found me before school started just to give me hugs and make sure I was okay. It was a fellow AVID teacher who drove me home after I got the bad news. It was my AVID coordinator who rushed to my house as soon as our AVID site review was over to check on my family and offer any help necessary. I learned through a very difficult circumstance what AVID does for me through both my students and site team members. No one will ever convince me that were I solely teaching English without the AVID component, my students would have had the respect that they did. Because of the relationships established in AVID, there's a mutual care and appreciation. My students see my compassion for them, and when they saw me hurt, they were there in whatever ways they could think of. I learned through this experience that yes, I do give a lot for my AVID students, but my students, when the opportunity presents itself, are willing to give just as much for me. AVID is a symbiotic relationship, a close relationship formed through working together. This strong relationships developed in AVID do carry over into the real world, as I was so blessed to learn this past year. We as AVID teachers struggle and sacrifice, especially our time, as we pour ourselves into our students. I want to assure you that our students do see our sacrifice, and they are willing to reach out and pour into us when they see a need. This past year, in the midst of a very difficult situation, I was able to smile with pride over the outpouring of love and support I received from students who wanted to give back. What we're doing does make a difference. My students demonstrated it vibrantly, and I know that all of our students have it in them because the relationships developed through AVID are life-altering. Trust me on this one.